Hello, everybody. Welcome to yet another edition of the Mill Georgia Spotlight. I'm your host, Jack Ellis. We're glad to have you with us this week. We'd like to thank our sponsors, Caduceus Medicine, J. Franklin Automotives, and, of course, the good people here at WMUB Mercer University TV, Channel 38. In the Spotlight this week, we have as our guests two international visitors. One is Christopher Seeger, who is a trustee of a very important foundation in the UK and works all over the world, but they have an affiliation here and in the U.S. as well, and that is the Foundation for Relief and Reconciliation, doing work in the Middle East, primarily in Iraq. And with him is Mike Simpson, who is the Chief Executive Officer of the organization. I'd like to welcome you to our program and welcome you to Macon.
Thank you very much, Jack.
Well, good. Well, let's tell me just a little bit about and maybe we'll start with you as a trustee, and we'll come back to the CEO. I know you do the day-to-day work, but you do the heavy lifting and raising funds, I'm sure. This organization has been in, how long have you been in operation now?
We set it up 14 years ago.
Yeah. In Iraq, specifically for Iraq?
We set it up in London to support our work in Iraq and to help us raise funds and to publicize the work that we're doing.
Now, let's make it clear, this is a Christian, not a Christian base, but a faith-based, let's put it that way. You work with all religions, but this is a faith-based organization?
It is. We are primarily working through the Church of St. George in Baghdad, which is an Anglican church. It's been there for 60 years, and that's our base in Iraq. So at that level, we are primarily a Church of England charity, but we're independent, and we work in Iraq with people of all the other churches, and indeed of all faiths. We support Muslims and Yazidis, and our clinic in Baghdad is open to anyone who needs medical assistance. We take as many as 2,000 cases a month from time to time. Oh, yeah.
People. Well, Mr. CEO, Mike Simpson, Mr. Simpson, now you deal with the day-to-day operation. How many people in 15 years, this is basically how long, a little longer than, well, about the war has been going on about that long. Right. So you were right after the invasion. Yeah. So how many people have you affected? How many have you been personally, when I say you, the organization?
Yes, well, it's going to be, I don't know, tens of thousands, I guess, altogether. So when ISIS attacked particularly in 2014 and swept across the north of Iraq, of course, that created a crisis of refugees. 200,000 Christians fled their homes in the middle of the night in August 2014. And altogether, 3 million Iraqis have been displaced within their own country in that period. And we have been providing food relief originally when the crisis happened initially, blankets, medicines, basic supplies to keep people alive and keep people safe. And then we're moved beyond that in the north of Iraq into helping people now to help themselves, because ISIS have supposedly been defeated, but actually we know that there is a real danger of a resurgence at some point. But people are starting to go back to their villages, and now we are trying to help them to help themselves to rebuild their lives and their communities.
So you're in Macon or in Georgia, the U.S., asking what? You're trying to share information, trying to enlighten us of what's going on, as well as raise funds. I understand you're going to be speaking at a couple of locations where you talk to us a little bit about your purpose, the whole purpose of the...
Absolutely. Well, we have the strapline is rebuilding lives and restoring hope. And that's what we're trying to do. I mean, this is a Christian foundation. We're working across all Christian denominations, but we're reaching out to people, as Christopher said, of all faiths, and trying to do a bit of peace building. You know, Jesus said, "Blessed are the peacemakers." We believe that, so we're doing that as well. But the focus in northern Iraq is on those minorities, the Christians and the Yazidis particularly, who've been the subject of genocide, as recognised by the US government, by the European government, and by the British Parliament.
And you're going to be speaking at 3 churches, I understand. Tell us the 3, Martha Bowman, I understand Riverside Drive. When will you be speaking at those churches?
Well, I'll be speaking at Riverside at 10 o'clock on Sunday, and then we're both speaking on Sunday evening at 6:30 at Martha Bowman.
Yeah, this is Sunday, that would be what, the 4th, 5th? What are we now? We're taping here on
Sunday
the 4th.
the 5th.
The 5th at what time?
I'm 10 o'clock in the morning,
10
and then
o'clock in
we're
the
both
morning.
at
I think it's
6:30.
6 o'clock, I think, on Sunday evening, actually, at Martha Bowman.
Six
Sorry to
o'clock.
correct you.
No, no,
Okay, that's okay. Well,
I'll be there on
People
time.
there
Don't
on
worry.
time.
but it's on the 5th, we just want to make
And
sure that...
you're speaking at Fort Valley a bit earlier on Sunday
Yes,
morning.
in the morning.
And what's the name? Do you know the church there? It's a Methodist church. We
There-
know that.
They're all Methodist churches,
Yeah.
but we are also, we work, I'd say, across all
Okay.
the different churches. But in this trip, we're focusing on we met with the Bishop of the Methodist Church yesterday. There's quite a focus on the Methodist churches, but we would be very happy to have the opportunity to speak to Baptist churches and other churches in the vicinity, because this is so important. We're talking about supporting our Christian brothers and sisters in Iraq who are suffering terrible persecution, you know, the horror, the terror of ISIS, the mad army that cut people's heads off and so on. And it's been a traumatic experience for those people. And so we feel, as Christians, we want to support those as our Christian brothers and sisters, and we want to encourage other people to do the same.
You mentioned some of the horrific acts that have taken place of beheading people, but the day-to-day need of the people in the refugee camps that so I guess you meet them where they are. You're dealing with all type of issues, but are you funded strictly by donations? Is the government involved in all this? Strictly fundraising from churches and so forth?
We've mainly been funded by individuals supporting our work. This is one reason why we like to publicize the situation up there as widely as we can. And we get a few grants from major grant providers in the charitable sector in Britain and in the US. And we're hoping for the bigger projects in reconstruction to bid for government funding, USAID or DFID in the UK, or the European Union aid agencies, because there are some big requirements now for reconstruction in some of these towns and cities. But traditionally, we're privately funded, independent and privately funded. And the more we can communicate what's happening and encourage people to contact us and support us, the better.
And your primary mission, the need, and you work with people in camps or even the resettlement. After they resettle, do you continue with the resettlement? And you provide, what type of services are you providing?
So it varies, Jack, between the locations. So we've already mentioned Baghdad. So in Baghdad, we work with the St. George's Church in Baghdad, the only Anglican Episcopalian church in Iraq, and that has this incredible ministry. So they are living in a fortified zone. The church is in a compound which has high walls, steel gates, razor wire, guys with automatic weapons protecting the church the whole time. When I preached there last year, they had 4 guys with automatic weapons as people were arriving for the church service, 300 congregation. In that compound, however, they have a medical clinic, which we are the funders of. About $250,000 a year we fund that medical clinic, a kindergarten, a primary school, an employment help project, a library, all within the ministry of this one church. It's an amazing ministry, and we are the main funders of that ministry in Baghdad. Supported incidentally by churches as well as individuals across the world, Hong Kong, New Zealand, in Nashville, Tennessee, the Christchurch Cathedral, their funders, for example. So a range of different churches and individuals support that. So that's in Baghdad. And in the north, as I said earlier, the main issue is that the refugees that were driven out of their homes and who are trying to go back to their homes, some of them. And so we're supporting and enabling employment projects, which maybe we can talk about a bit more later. And in addition to that, there are many people who've left the country because they're so traumatized. So in Jordan, we support 6,000 Christian Iraqi refugees in Jordan, for example, and we are supporting them with food relief and medicine and so on, because they're not allowed to work. You know, as in many countries, refugees are not allowed to work because they may be thought to take local jobs otherwise.
That's basic services, what I'm hearing. You provided meeting people where they are, giving what they need, but then you also have in your title reconciliation. So then you move to the next step. Are you trying to, when you say bring the people back into their communities and that, and the reconciliation, and you're working with all. That's where it comes in, working with all faith, I guess.
We do. Historically, when I say 14 years ago, much of that time, our previous priest in charge there, Canon Andrew White, was doing a lot of work in Baghdad in reconciliation between the different religious communities. Now this work continues. Father Fayez is doing a great job in Baghdad, keeping in touch with the other churches and the other religious communities. And we're going to take this forward in the north now in two ways. One is to talk among the other churches and between the other communities, the Yazidis, the Sunni and the Shia, but also simply by demonstrating that we help everyone, hoping to show that Christians can help everyone get back their lives and rebuild the communities and work together. It's a matter of, we're not trying to lecture people, we're just trying to show what works and what could work in the future.
So you have people on the ground from your organization the ground, or you go in and train people in the country, in the community to do the work, or do you send people from London there?
So
or it's a combination there.
It's a combination, but I was talking on Skype this morning with our guy in Erbil in Kurdistan, who's actually a secular Muslim, Abdul Rahman his name is, and we were talking with him about the work of building the reconciliation program. So he has some great connections with evangelical Christians, for example, who are working in northern Iraq, running refuges for Yazidi women, and we work with the Shia community, the Sunnis, all different groups. We are not coming in as Western people saying you should all get together and forget about your differences.
That's where I was going with. Okay.
No way. So this is about helping the local people,
helping people help themselves.
To help themselves, and facilitating communication and ways of building understanding and breaking down some of the barriers.
But in order to do that, you need resources. That's what you're doing. You're trying to raise money so you can keep providing the services that
we need resources to sustain our staff and keep the work contact going. Secondly, we need resources to help people re-establish their businesses. In northern Iraq, they were either farmers or small traders or craftsmen. All that economic activity was wiped out effectively by ISIS. It needs to be restarted.
So now you're pretty much in a rebuilding, because I'm going to, maybe I will express my ignorance here as to exactly what's going on in that part of the world right now, but I thought ISIS has been wiped out, people are coming back, communities are beginning to thrive again, there are green shoots coming up, but you're saying there's a lot of work yet to be done.
There's an awful lot of work. In particular, as Christopher was saying, it's around jobs. So we produced a short film called Voices of Iraq, which tells the story of what's happened to people, mainly the story of what's happened to the Christians in northern Iraq. We're showing it actually at Martha Bowman, 6 o'clock on Sunday evening, for example. And out of that, what many people said to us was, well, it's all very well going back to my village. My house has probably been burnt. Everything's been stolen by ISIS. I might be able to get some help, maybe to rebuild, renovate my home. But what am I going to do for a living? How am I going to sustain my family? So what our project, we called it Nineveh Seed. Nineveh, as in the Bible, Nineveh, is in that area. So the program's Sustainable Enterprise Economic Development. That's what the SEED stands for. And the idea is to regenerate the businesses, the small businesses, the chicken farms, the bakeries, the stone quarry, etc.
The basics. Well, we are about out of time, but we will give you an opportunity to say to the people again exactly where you're going to be, when you're going to be there, so that people can come. This show will airs 8 a.m. on Saturday morning, 8 p.m. on Saturday evening on Cox Cable Channel 112, and also over the air. So we'll be airing on Saturday. We're airing the day before you speak. So that's the 5th or the 6th. What's that? What?
5th. Sunday the 5th.
Sunday the 5th. 8 that you'll be speaking at what time?
Mike is going to be speaking at Fort Valley at 9:30.
Okay.
I'm going to be speaking at Riverside at 10. And then in the evening, we both go to Martha Bowman Church at 6.
Okay.
At which point we show them the film, Voices of Iraq.
Well, there you have it. So we please go out and listen to what they have to say, because the need is great. I've been traveling around the world, primarily in Africa myself, working in refugee camps, and the need is great. And they need your help. You need to hear what they are saying so that we can make contribution, because as President Kennedy reminded us, we must make God's work on this earth our very own, and that's what you all are doing. And for
Exactly.
a side note, you mentioned the Anglican Church. Just 2 months ago, I had the president of the Ugandan Christian University in Uganda came here to sign an MOU with Mercer University, which is that church, of course, that medical school at Ugandan Christian University is under the umbrella of the Anglican Church.
Well, terrific.
So we've had 2 people attached to the Anglican Church here in the studio in the last 2 months. So welcome to our town. We're glad you're here. Thanks for coming by and sharing with us.
It's a pleasure.
And all the best for you, the work that you're doing there.
Thanks so
you,
much,
Jack.
Pretty.
Hello and welcome back to the Middle Georgia Spotlight. We have as our guest now Dr. Michelle Prettyman. She is a professor of media studies at Mercer University, and we're here today to talk about the first annual African American Film Festival here in Macon, sponsored by the Tubman Museum. So it's the Tubman African American Film Festival.
That's it.
Did I get it right?
You got it right.
Welcome to our program.
Thank you so much.
First of all, congratulations on the first annual African American Film Festival, which will take place the weekend of the 5th of May.
The 3rd through the 5th, so
3rd
it's going
through
to start
the 5th
on
of
Friday.
May.
That's
Okay.
right. Yeah, but you're right. It's the first one, and I think, given that this community's history of music and culture and just Black excellence, it's fitting that we go ahead and make the first film festival a reality.
So was this your vision, a vision of the Tubman, and they reached out to you because of your expertise, or did you bring the idea? Whose vision is
I
it?
think, it was sort of a joint vision. I had approached Andy some time ago, and he always wanted to do it. But, it was just a question of funding and lining things up in the right way, in the right time. And the Knight Foundation, fortunately, came through with some resources for us. So it really was a joint, I think, idea.
Film is becoming a big thing in Macon,
yeah.
and not only in Macon, but throughout Georgia and in Macon.
Yeah.
And I recall, not to have revisionist history, but I recall that the U.S. Conference of Mayors asked me and 2 other guys to go to the Oscars in 2004, 2005 to promote Georgia as a film, because we weren't making any film. And I remember how people complained, what is he going to the Oscars for?
Wow.
And we went out and met with all of the producers and directors and site location people. So I'm just so glad to see.
Absolutely.
I'm not saying I had anything to do with it, but
you
I
did.
remember how people complained about me trying to make this happen, but I'm so glad it's happened. Tell us a little bit about this film festival. What type of films will we see this weekend? That will be, will there be previewing for the first time, or older films, and the venues?
Okay, so lots of good stuff will be happening. So on Friday night, we will be having at the Grand Opera House a screening of a film called Tell Them We Are Rising, about HBCUs, and we want to make sure that HBCU folk, alumni, come out and support that. That will be starting at 5:30. We'll have a reception. Producer Stacey Holman will be here from New York. She's coming to be our special guest and to sort of give us some insight into how that film was produced and her role there. So that's going to be on Friday night. Saturday, we've got a full slate of films. A film called Wax Print will open up Saturday at 10, and then we'll
10 a.m.
10 a.m.
Now, the venue?
Now, so yes, on Saturday, all day at Theater Macon. They've got a wonderful theater in there, and we've got the run of the place all day. So from about 10 o'clock to the evening, we'll be screening films
Theater
there.
Macon is located on Cherry Street,
Yes,
downtown
right on
Macon.
downtown Macon. But what I want to say about that 10 a.m. screening is that it's a film called Wax Print, and it's going to talk about African women's role in textiles and fashion, and it's sort of going to give you some history and then bring us up to how women are still sort of at the forefront of fashion and textiles in Africa and disseminating their beautiful fabrics and fashions around the world. But that's a free screening. I want to make sure everybody hears that. Free 10 a.m. That's our only free screening on Saturday, and then we've got one also on Sunday that I'll talk about in just a minute.
On Sunday, so both the one on Saturday will be at the Theater Macon, and Sunday will be where?
Sunday, we've got something that they're used to. Tubman always does a great drive-in theater movie, but we're doing a Black classic film that many people have heard of, Cooley High. So we'll be screening that on the back lot of the Tubman in the evening.
Now, will there be any new films, or these are all classic films?
No,
that
no,
you
no.
would
The
bring
one
out?
classic really is the only one on Sunday.
Okay.
But we have stuff that's fresh off of the Sundance circuit, stuff that's been screening really around the world in the last year or two. Nothing really older than probably 2 years old. So really newer things coming out.
Well, talk to me just a little bit about the whole African American, people of color, we should say, because not just African Americans, that in the past we've been hearing about Hollywood not reaching out, not being receptive, talking with the Oscars and people not recognizing.
Yeah.
Do you see, will festivals like this help alleviate that going forward, you think?
Yeah, they will, and they've been doing that for years. I work with the American Black Film Festival in Miami, and they've been around for 20 plus years. There have been festivals doing this stuff and giving black filmmakers a platform for decades, really, but not here, right? So this is our opportunity to sort of jump into the current. This stuff is happening, as you said earlier. This is really what's happening around the world. There's a wave of this. So now Middle Georgia has an opportunity to sort of get in on this wave.
Do you have a relationship with any other African American film festival in the state? I understand Savannah has one, Atlanta has one.
Well,
Do you coordinate
so,
with them?
so here's the thing. There are regional festivals all over the country, in Atlanta and Savannah. But black film festivals are kind of a specialty. So the Bronze Lens Festival is in Atlanta. That's the black festival in Atlanta, and it's doing wonderfully well. That's going to be in August. So, you know, I encourage people, if you're interested, do a little research. Type in black film festivals, and you'll see there are dozens around the country doing really great work.
Well, yeah, I'm sure there are so many young people. You probably meet them in the classroom. You probably meet them on the street. They all want to be a star.
Yeah.
They want to be in movies.
Yeah.
Will there be workshops in this festival where, if you think you have a good script, or if you think you can act, will there be any way to interact with, or any way to get your voice or your work or anything in the public eye, if you will?
Yeah, so not so much this year workshops. This was our first year, and we wanted to make sure that we sort of got it up and running and sort of made sure that we had an audience here. Going forward, of course, you've got to have workshops. You've got to have a space where people can not just sell their scripts, but really learn their craft. So yeah, we're hoping to do that in the future.
Now, of course, we know that the history of Macon being what it is, but we want to talk about the here and now. The venues that we have in Macon to show film, we only have one movie in Macon, one movie theater, several commercial I'm talking about, not the Grand Opera House and all those things.
Sure.
Does that prevent, in your opinion, and we want to talk about the here and now, but I want you to talk about how does one get a film in a theater like the one here in Macon? How does that happen?
Well, so the good news, Mayor, is that this is a new world. You don't need to get your film
In a big theater.
In a theater, you don't. I mean, there are filmmakers all around the world who are finding all kinds of different platforms to show their work, whether it goes straight to Netflix, whether it gets picked up and sort of hits the festival circuit and travels around the world. That way, there are many different avenues now. There used to be sort of one pathway. You got your film into a big theater, and you hoped that folks would come and see it. And oftentimes, for black filmmakers, that was sort of a really difficult position to be in, right? Because they couldn't either get the audience, or they were in competition with lots of other films. So this is a new day. So I'm encouraging young people to take advantage of these different platforms. That your film does not need a theatrical release anymore.
People have told me that Macon itself, the city of Macon, I had some friends come down from Atlanta and said, it looks like a studio, because this was before we renovated a lot of buildings. Now buildings have been renovated. So it's a perfect set. It's just like the perfect set for having movies.
Yeah.
Would you advocate building a set here? We know what's happening with Tyler Perry, what he's doing out at Fort McPherson, old Fort McPherson building.
Right.
Sound and stages. Would you recommend building sound stages here or anything like that for
Well,
movies
I
going
think
forward?
it's such a massive expense. I think there are other ways that I would spend that money if I had it. I think post-production facilities, audio facilities, I think there are other ways to spend it instead of building really expensive sound stages that you then have to sort of make sure you've got people coming in and using it. So I don't know that that's the way, but I think that having some production venue, right? Post-production to me is really key, because a lot of people do come and shoot in Georgia, and they might be looking to sort of edit their film and not have to go to LA or New York, but edit right here in Georgia. So I think post-production facilities would probably be the best way to use those resources, but that's kind of just...
What about young people wanting to get into the film? there, as you said, the post-production, so for every one person in front of the camera, there's probably 10 or 15 people doing other things.
Absolutely.
So at your school, your school at Mercer University, where you're teaching media, is there any way, what courses do you offer there? What courses would you recommend for young people to pursue if they want to get into the art of making movies, working in the background, filming and all of that?
Yeah. I think this is probably a long answer because on one level I think that first they have to study the craft and watch films on their own. Anybody, even if you decide I don't want to get an undergraduate degree, I don't want to go to graduate school, watching films, and now all the resources online, there's so many things that when I started weren't available, right? So that's one pathway. If you're an undergraduate student, then you need to take screenwriting, you need to take studio and field production, you need to take digital storytelling, you need to take courses that also teach you about film theory and film studies. So you need sort of a well-rounded approach. The best filmmakers, to me, are people that understand both story and sort of the production aspects, right? You can't sort of just understand one side of it. So we give a lot of that at Mercer. We provide a lot of that at Mercer. But if you didn't want to do any of that, I think there's still things that are available to you that you could learn.
I was just wondering, how does one get in without coming to the university set design? So you want to get, I can design a set. Would you go to a technical college, or where would you go to get those skills?
Yeah, well, in Georgia, there's something called the Georgia Film Academy, where you can take classes that teach you all kinds of aspects of production. And I know a number of young people that have gone that route as well. Sometimes kids go to school and then realize, well, I didn't get enough production experience, and then they still end up taking Georgia Film Academy courses, in part because they're a lot cheaper. But that's one route. Sometimes community colleges have courses that you can take as well, so you don't have to necessarily get a full degree, but you can get some skills under your belt.
How has the internet, if you will, you mentioned Netflix, how has, like you say, you don't have to be on the big screen now, but how has that changed? How has that revolutionized the whole film industry, in your opinion?
I cannot put into words how transformative that is. I mean, you have companies that are like Ava DuVernay's distribution company, Array, who are funneling projects straight to Netflix. People of color all around the world are finally getting, and it's not just Netflix, but there are other, certainly platforms as well. Amazon has been developing all kinds of cool stuff with lots of black directors as well. So it's transformative. I mean, the filmmakers I knew, it took them years to make a film, right? And then years to get funding and years to find a distributor. And now we're finding that you can do those things in just a much shorter time and reach a worldwide audience, kind of right at their fingertips.
I asked that question because, I've heard some people complain certain movies, they don't get the movies at the studio, they don't, that the people of color want to see and so forth. But you're saying there's no excuse now because that movie is available. If you want to see it, you can see it.
There's no excuse. I mean, just the African films on Netflix alone, I think would blow most people's minds if you're not really familiar with Netflix. And I keep coming back to Netflix because they have been, for me, just the most so open to people of color. And again, as you said, not just African Americans, but people all around the country, all around the globe, really. The West Indies, and again, African cinema is just really in a renaissance of its own. So, yeah.
Now, this film festival, that's what we're here for, to talk about the film festival. I wanted to talk a little bit more about the whole industry, how it's shaking out, because you read about people of color saying, we're not getting a fair shake in Hollywood, and our Oscars, our film is not, so, in spite of that, how do you still, because this industry is a very lucrative one.
It is.
And even in Africa, you got, what's that, in Nigeria?
Nollywood,
yeah. Was it Nollywood? Nollywood. Then you got Bollywood in India.
Yes.
So it's not just Hollywood
not
anymore.
At all.
It's all over the world.
All over. It's a global industry, yeah.
So in Georgia, we know that that's big now with Tyler Perry and other, Savannah has, but Macon, this is the first time we had the African American Film Festival.
Yeah.
What do you hope to accomplish with that?
Well, I want to say two things before I forget. That first, most folks know that we also have a Macon Film Festival, and I used to serve on their board. And I want to also credit them because they've been extremely supportive in helping this come to fruition. But I think what people should expect is that Macon should now be considered a film hub, right? We've got, in part, thanks to the Macon Film Commission and the Macon Film Festival, it's not only a place where things can be shot, but it's also a place where you can get quality film programming that would rival any other major city in the country, right? We can get quality film programming here that rivals any other I'd say not even cities our size, but I think other larger cities, we're capable of getting those films here and having them shown to an audience. So to me, that's what I want to do, is to bring films that you might not see every day or might not hear about, bring them to the audience and let the audience have access to seeing these films. So that's part of what this festival is trying to do.
So the big thing is Saturday. We know Friday.
So we start Friday. Yeah, Friday. We're hoping to fill up the Grand Opera House and have a great discussion with producer Stacy Holman. And then Saturday, we've got wax print, where I should mention also Saturday night, we've got another reception, and we're bringing in filmmaker Jacqueline Olive, who's got a really compelling film called Always in Season. But we'll be showing films all day at the Grand Opera House, wrapping up that evening with Always in Season and a reception with her, and then Cooley High on Sunday.
Okay, so Saturday, big day is
Full day.
May 5th.
I think it's the 4th.
Saturday, May 4th, is it?
I'm not sure, but whatever this Saturday is.
Saturday, yeah. We're taping here on Tuesday, so Saturday.
Okay.
So Saturday and Sunday, the people can come out and see, because we're not going to see this on Friday, so it starts on Friday.
Yeah.
But they'll see this on Saturday
morning,
and they'll see it on Saturday afternoon.
Great.
And so the big 2 days for
Saturday
the people
and
who
Sunday
are
then.
watching,
Yes.
that will be Saturday and Sunday.
Yes.
Okay, well, great. Well, look, we wish you much success with the
Thank
very
you.
first one.
Yeah.
And you are the director of it. You
Artistic
coordinated-
director.
Artistic
yeah,
director.
which means I help to sort of figure out what films are good and sort of topical and timely. Yeah, so just put in my 2 cents, but other people have helped as well.
Well, great.
Yeah.
Okay, we've been talking with Dr. Michelle Prettyman, who is the artistic director for the first annual African American Film Festival here in Macon, Georgia. Get out on Saturday and Sunday and see exactly what they have brought for you to enjoy here. Yeah. And we thank you all for joining us. And until next week, I'm your host, Jack Ellis. Goodbye.